Okay, I just watched a video. It was a documentary on Donald Trump, and it was done by this guy named Troy Black and his partner, I believe, is Marcus Rogers. Now, I don't too much get involved in these type of guys, but it was interesting because they are so-called men of God. So I wanted to see and get into their psyche and see what's in their minds to where they would go to this extent to advocate for Donald Trump as Christians. So I watched the whole thing and I took notes all the way through because I just want to see, I really want to see what's on these guys' mind. And because a lot of people ask, why do Christians vote for Trump? So I kind of feel like I would, get some information from this video. So I believe they've been working on this documentary for some months or whatever. But I got my notes here, and I'm gonna go through my notes line by line. I watched the whole thing, and I took notes as I was watching it. Now, first of all, I believe these guys are absolutely delusional because I just, you know, I think that both of them are young and they don't really have a good historical perspective and a grasp on American politics. It's always been corrupt. I mean, from the time I was young. I was born in the early '60s, and as far back as I remember, I remember Richard Nixon being president, and because I was too young when JFK got shot, but I pretty much understood what was happening as I grew. But I think these two guys are kind of young, and they don't have a really, they have the same mindset that I had when I first started off in the gospel, as thinking, believing that America was a Christian nation, and I believed that. I had believed it then. But God, He taught me a lot. But anyway, like I said, I believe they are delusional, and I don't think they have matured to have a discernment of spirit. They just they don't have that discernment yet, because being from the hood, you can pretty much tell when somebody ain't no good. If there's a guy who wanted to date your sister or something, you can look at him and tell he wasn't no good. You just have that natural discernment. But when you in the Lord, you have a spiritual discernment, and you can see the devil coming a mile away. I don't think they have that because they're still stuck in that America is a Christian nation mindset. So they believe that everything that's happening in this country is, as a result of God, His favor on this country. That's not true. I've discovered that America is more cursed than it is blessed. Okay, but I'll go into that to another video. But they call this movie The Outlier, you know, and he was an outlier. He was definitely an outlier, and he was an outlier that brought forth the bigots of America. That's who he stood out to, the bigots and the racists, and that's who he brought out. All of those people were hidden underground. They had been driven underground by the civil rights movement and the Black Power movement. People just advanced around above that, and he came out and he brought them people out, and they still out, getting worse. That's what they started talking about. The name of the movie. And what they doing, they're trying to revive or trying to relive the 2016 election. And I believe that they're trying to pump Trump up to make people believe that, he was some kind of called of God. And they're trying to drive this point into people, you know, for this next election. But they never touch on the next 8 years. They never talk about the 2020 election. And they definitely didn't talk about this one upcoming. So they just kind of stuck into the 2016, and they, you know, glorified it as if, Trump won, and they did. People weren't expecting him to, and they went into his background and stuff like this. But I'm gonna get to that. But he won. People and everybody know, if you follow politics and you have an understanding of how it works, he won not because of God. He won because um, Hillary Clinton. A lot of people did not like her, and he won because Hillary Clinton sabotaged Bernie Sanders. I truly believe, and a lot of people will tell you to this day, that if Sanders had a ran against Trump, Sanders would have won because he had the majority of the young vote. And a lot of Trump supporters now, Sanders was speaking to them too, because they were looking for a non-establishment president, and Sanders was definitely one. But when Hillary kicked him out, when they sabotaged Sanders, and she took the stand, people were like, okay, this is, and that's how Trump won. It wasn't because God put him there. But we're going to get to that because they talk about that. Then they go into, how he's some type of great man because this assassination attempt, he's, pumped his fist, and the whole thing was fake. It's very questionable. So many people are like, it's just unbelievable. Okay, so they went into that, and if it was the case, an AR-15 bullet would have ripped his ear off, and people have already debunked that, hero, martyr type image that they've tried to attach to him to make him great. They go into that. Then they go into his background, and then they call him a playboy, a billionaire playboy. A charismatic figure. They call him that. They show all these pictures of him being young and hanging around movie stars and celebrities, and I was the same way. I was money hungry whoremonger. That's all that is. That's all it is. It's a money hungry whoremonger, and that's who I was before I got saved. People living they talked about the rap songs, how he was in the rap songs and idolized by rappers. They had to throw that in there. But like I said, a billionaire playboy ain't nothing but a money hungry whoremonger. But God saved me. But has God saved him? Has he changed him? Because I know when God saved me, he took away the spirit of lust out of me right away. He took lust away from me. And materialism, that mindset, so they talked about that. Then they go into they glorify him, his past and everything. Just like the History Channel glorifies Hitler. They constantly play clips of Hitler's life. They go talk about his childhood. They talk about how he rose to power and all of this. It's a glorification of fascism. That's all. That's what they were doing. They were glorifying this guy, trying to make him look good and have people trying to make him personal to people, All right. Then they went into one guy on there. One of the people I guess they interviewed said that he became more poor after becoming president. Really? People don't know, what Trump was up to in the White House, making deals with foreign countries. It's all coming out, and it's all going to come out. They talked about that. But if he became poorer, then maybe that explains why he's grifting gym shoes, mug shots, Bibles, which is an abomination. I can't believe these guys can't see through that. It's sad. That's why I said it's delusional. So they go into that, and then they go into how he may have been called of God. They talk about then in 2000 he met Paula White, and how Paula White, got a call from him, and how he drifted towards her, and maybe this is a calling from the Lord. This is what they were trying to implant. Maybe this is a calling from the Lord. First of all, Paula White is a woman preacher, which is forbidden in the Bible. She shouldn't even be preaching. Okay. I suffer not a woman to teach or use up authority over a man. So her word basically means nothing. I mean, she is fine that she got behind him and prayed for him. Then they showed all the other pastors who grifted towards him. And I'm like, these guys, they just as delusional, but they had hope that maybe somebody put out a lie that he was called under some type of anointing of Cyrus. That's, God never, um, oh, then they went into some guy. And Paula White is an adulteress. She's been married 3 times, just like Trump. So I mean, but they will make excuses and say, well, God can use people, who are sinners, But I'm gonna speak to that point. God calls men. He called his apostles. He calls his prophets, his teachers and preachers today in the church to do his work. Why would he call, a con man and not save him? I mean, anytime God calls somebody to do something, he saves them first. Then they can do something. I don't understand where they get this logic that they knew he can call somebody out of the dirt. And even when he called Cyrus out, he straightened Cyrus up. But Trump he has no anointing whatsoever. None. He's mean spirited and all of that. And and then they went into they said that, it when they started supporting Trump, the evangelicals, that it caused a great divide in the church. That was the first red flag, and that's when I got into it. That's when I started paying attention to this guy and these evangelicals, because I'm like, why would these people get behind him? And it caused a great divide. That's a red flag. Satan is a divider. He divides kingdoms, and that's exactly what he did. He divided the church, because, people were looking at, character, and the other people were looking at policy. And we're going to get into that, but they start talking about, oh, I like the legislation. That's a joke. All right. Then they start talking about how he wanted to overturn Roe versus Wade. And maybe it was a call from the Lord. They did not think through overturning Roe. I mean, it's a good thing that Roe was overturned, but they didn't think it through. No, they did not think about this at all. They just cold turkey cut it off. That's like I was saying in my other video. That's like cutting off, making people go back to landlines and taking their cell phones. It's just a hard thing to do. You have to wean people, but I'm not going to go into that. And they asked the question, well, did he do that, to pacify the evangelical vote? Yes, he did it just for their vote. He did it just for their vote. It's just that simple. I mean, that's common sense. And then they had some guy who prophesied that he seen Trump in the White House, and I think the prophecy came in 2007 or 2009 or something. But they had this guy prophesying, yeah, I see Trump in the White House. That does not mean that came from God. You can see people somewhere, but that does not mean that it came from God. My first notion of this was that Satan put that man there. Satan does the same thing. He makes false apostles, false ministers, false leaders, false preachers. He can change himself into an angel of light. Satan does the same thing. He puts people in the White House or in powerful positions. The only way you can tell the difference is them by their fruit. Just like Jesus said. What is this man's fruit? It's not love, peace, joy, goodness, kindness. It's all the works of the flesh. Wrath, hate, anger, these type things. Then they go on to one of the guys said that then they start going into the media and how the media influences people on how they vote. And one guy was, I think it was the Marcus Rogers guy, talking about people are programmed to vote. Not everybody is programmed. Some people know exactly what they're doing. You know, I mean, everybody is not just, walking blindly. Some people are very aware of what they're doing. So I just want to squash that little myth. And you know, um, and a lot of people can see. They can see right through Trump. Like I said, some people just got common sense. They can see right through him. It was just a shock that the church was backing him. This is where it got complicated. And a lot of people just didn't like Hillary. They didn't like her. I didn't like her. And then, um, it's not prophetic at all that, he ended up there. That's not prophetic. It's just odds. It's like who's going to win the football game. It's between two people. It's not prophetic. And like I said, and if it came to him just because he's there, does not mean God put him there. See, like I said, these guys are kind of immature, and they're banking on this grand illusion, that God controls America, that he has America's favor. No, America is a cursed nation. That's why it's in the situation it is now. That's why there's abortion and homosexuality, mass shootings, drug overdoses, corrupt politicians, a large imprisonment, prison industrial complex, racism and hate. This is cursed. Just because y'all got money don't mean nothing. Just because, don't mean nothing. And then they almost broke. And it's going downhill. But then they go on to talk about the how the media is controlling people, and then the deep state, and how Trump is going to clear out the swamp. There's no such thing as the deep state. It's only corrupt politicians. Okay, that's the deep state. I don't care who they work for, FBI, CIA. If they're corrupt, that's what that is. It's just corruption. There's no such thing as the deep state. It's just a bunch of corrupt people taking advantage of the American people. That's all that is. They can call it what they want, but that's all it really is. And then he got talking about, how the media, how he upset the media, and how he beat Hillary, and took her place. Well, yeah, it was called the Bush-Clinton dynasty. Bush was president, Clinton was president. Bush was president, then Obama came along, and I know why they threw him in there. But then Clinton was supposed to be president, and somebody was going to break it, and it was either going to be Bernie Sanders or Donald Trump. That's all that happened. The Bush-Clinton dynasty was broken, and the establishment, people got sick of the establishment. That's all. That's what happened. Then they go into how he switched to being a Republican, and how he said he would. I just really consider about being a Republican. Yeah, he could be. They left out the part where he said because they're stupid. He said it's easy to get them. All you gotta do is give them the talking points, say what they want to hear. Then they go off into legislation. You have to look at the policies. This legislation does not come from God. Legislation comes from men. Okay, all right. Abortion was legislation. Did God do that? No. Citizens United was legislation. Did God do that to allow billionaires to buy politicians? Bribery, legalized bribery? No, not all. Legislation is man's thing. God does not dictate legislation. Man does that. God, our job as the church is to pray for people in authority. The Lord tells us to pray for being in authority. He didn't say go vote for them. You can vote if you want to, but I would not put my Christianity, my salvation on the line to be caught up in a trap of man's politics. It's just a trap. And this proves it. This documentary proves it. How you get caught up so deep in politics that you totally ignoring the obvious of God's message to you. All right, then he goes into then they talk about how Obama, spoke against Trump, and he was trying to undermine Trump. At the correspondence dinner, it was That's what all presidents do. They do that every time a president is elected. They do like a roast. It hurt Trump's feelings, and it pissed him off. And from there, he got in his feelings, and he tried everything he could to unravel Obamacare. That was helping so many millions of people. The majority of them, Republicans. Okay. Then they go on to talk about evangelical support. You know how everybody starts supporting him. You know, in the headlines of, you know, evangelicals get behind Trump. Yeah, they sold out. They sold out Jesus and asked for Barabbas. You know, Satan made them an offer on the mountain, tempting them, and they took it. I'll give you all of this. I'll give you the power of the United States if you bow down and worship me. And that's exactly what the evangelicals did. They bowed down to that man and made him a deity. Okay, they forgot the basic concepts of God. That God is not the author of confusion. All right. Then they went in to talk about. Then they showed how he started thinking himself that he was the chosen one. Like when he looked up in the sky, I am the chosen one. Every time that man did that, he blasphemed God because God did not put him there. All right. People told him a lie, and he has not shown not one fruit of the Spirit, not one. Okay. Then they go on to talk about regulations. They start getting into policy, you know, and how to, I guess they're trying to appeal to people to look at the policies, and they were down talking regulation. Regulation is what keeps our water clean and our food safe, you know, and they speaking against it. But look at Flint, Michigan, look at Jackson, Mississippi, look at a few other counties. You know, the water is starting to be dirty and polluted. Our food is, you know, chemicalized, you know, not safe to eat. That's why we need government regulation. But they just speaking these talking points, don't even understand what they're talking about. You know, of course, people can be small business, but if you have any type of business ethics, you are not going to poison your own people. You know, it's just rules you follow to make sure the government put in place rules for to make sure you're not trying to kill folks. But they don't care. The Republicans did away with most of the regulations. That's why the water is dirty and filthy, you know, and that's why the food is contaminated and poisonous. That's why people are dying of cancer and other illnesses, because they have cut back regulations so they can save money to put in their pockets. Okay? But they repeating these Republican talking points about regulation. They don't even know what they're talking about. Then they go into the guy talking about America is a Christian nation. That is a historical lie. America was never Christian. If it was Christian, Christian means having the Spirit of God. If the founding fathers or the explorers or the so-called discoverers or the thieves that came over here, if they had the Spirit of God and founded this country, they would have never did slavery. Never. They would have never went to Africa, took them people, or even bought some people. They wouldn't have done that because the Spirit convicts you on anything you do wrong. So no, that's a historical lie. Now they can claim it. They can say, yeah, we Christian. Everybody were Christian because they came from Europe. Okay, and Europe was based on the Catholicism, but they broke away from that and started the Lutheran and under Martin Luther came over here to Reformation. You know, so yeah, they were. Most of them was Christian, but the founding fathers weren't. And this is not a Christian nation that's based on character. Okay, it's based on claim, but not character, because they'd have never had slaves, and they never would have brutalized them, raped them, killed them, committed genocide on the Native Americans. That's not Christian. That was not God. It's not God. So stop that lying. Okay, come out of that mindset. All right, look at the truth. True worshipers worship God in spirit and in truth. If you can't accept the truth, you are not a true worshiper. You're not listening. You're not hearing from the Lord. All right. Then it goes into capitalism and white supremacy. These are not biblical principles. All right. This is what they based on. This country is based on. And capitalism is not a biblical principle. Okay. It's not. It's more, you can read the book of Acts chapter 4 in verse 30, 31 through 34. And it'll tell you how the early church started. It was a communal system. but I'm not going to go into that right now. White supremacy, you know, this great replacement theory, they scared of that. You know, then they even went into, then they started talking about immigration, how great this country is based on immigration. Yeah, it's a lot of immigrants, but that ain't what they thinking about now. You know, they not when he calling folks, you know, countries S-hole countries. You know, right now it's based on white fear of being replaced by people that's brown. That's all. That's what's going on. All right. That's not the beauty of immigration. That's the hate mongering against people who are from other countries and who are not white. Be real. Okay, be real. That's what's happening. And listen to him now. You know, y'all talking about back in 2016. Listen to the man now. You know, going off on Haitians. You know, and he's going to deport mass. He says he's going to deport, you know, Hispanics. Why? I don't understand why some of these brothers have a problem with immigrants. They complain about, well, they're giving them our money. What, welfare money? You can't make your own money? You know, they're giving them money. They've been doing that for years. Okay. I grew up in Detroit, and Arabs were coming over to Detroit when I was in my teens, buying grocery stores and gas stations from black owners. And they didn't have to pay taxes for 5 years. They've been giving these people money, bank loans for years. Just stop your whining. Deal with the truth. All right. Then they go into how the government is, you know, they need to, immigrants are bringing drugs into the country like Trump started off with. They bringing in drugs. The government, okay, bring in drugs. The government are the biggest, United States government is the biggest drug dealers in the world. Seriously. Okay. I mean, yeah, see, that's what I mean by it. Y'all don't understand. Y'all don't do y'all research. You know, y'all don't understand what happened in most of the major cities in the 80s when all this crack cocaine popped up, you know. And just like the brother said, I can't remember what comedian that was, black comedian, but he said, ain't no poppy fields in the hood, in Harlem. Oh, that was that movie. You know, where's black folks gonna grow cocaine? That stuff was coming in. They were shipping it in, throwing it on the streets, throwing crack on the streets. I remember them days. Where did it come from? You know, they pumped it from the South America, and overseas right into the black community. Shut up about immigrants. It's documentaries on that, how the government, you know, pumped in drugs into this country. Then they went into talking about. Then he went into this song at the end. You know, one of the guys made, and a song about America, you know. And yeah, you know, America can be great. It can. All right. If you get rid of the political corruption, the legalized bribery, if you get rid of hate groups and idiots, bigots, racists, you know, and get rid of and restrict guns. And these guys, they all into that too. You know, they wear their guns proudly. It's stupidity. But that was about the end of the video. But I just wanted to come on and kind of go over this with you, because now I got a better understanding of how these guys are thinking. You know, they leave out a lot of stuff. You know, they glorify them. All right. They didn't say anything negative, you know, and their main purpose was to convince people that it's quite possible that Trump was from God. No. Nowadays, back in the Old Testament, that was a different era of time. But nowadays, when God wants something done and he calls people to do it, he saves them. He gives them the Holy Ghost. He trains them for a year, 2 years. He sanctifies them. He set them aside and he teaches them. He chastises them. He puts them through it. And then they come out and they do his work. He don't go and get some playboy out of a mansion and just set him up there and say, you Cyrus. That's stupid. Anyway, I'm done. Trying to think of anything I have to say. You can visit my website, foundationgospel.com, and check out my writings. My mission from the Lord has always been to call out false prophets. I don't know what's wrong with these brothers, but I'm praying for them that they will grow up. I'm not saying that they are damnable. I'm saying that they really need to grow up because they don't see how deep politics has distorted their so-called salvation. They can't see the obvious. They're blind. They can't see the obvious. And they don't understand the truth. Okay? Peace.